Hello there. Welcome to another talk. Different music I've got on today. This is uh, it's just on YouTube I've got on, and that just plays. It's I think it's older fashioned music. I don't think it says what year, but I thought I would put that music on. It's different to normal. But just before I came on here, I was thinking about my Patreon site. I do accept donations if people want to. You don't have to, but just before I thought, you know what? Because I don't really work on my Patreon site really, and I think it is something to consider working on. Because if people are paying you money, then at least that way they're part of something. So that's something brewing in me, or downloaded or whatever. But today's talk is called "What is Nothing." Nothingness was one of the early things that happened in my apparent unexpected spiritual awakening. The early parts of it was like, nothing. It's all nothing. I remember, I'm just realizing that all is just one infinity, and that all is the same infinity. And at the time, I hadn't read any books on this stuff. The only book I read at that point ever was a children's fairy tale book when I was a child. And that was the only book I'd read at that point of the start of my spiritual awakening, which is coming on for 11 years now. I was 24 when it first happened, the first big one, and 35 on this year on October 22nd. But nothingness was one of the early things. Because the reason that was is because the spiritual awakening is taking you back to the source. And the source is before, any Big Bang or anything. And that source would be nothing. But the problem with nothing is a person has a perception of what that nothing is. But it's neither this or that. It's basically other people's ideas. And this opened a lot of stuff up for me. The start of my awakening with the nothingness. It was like I was becoming very rational. Very rational I was becoming. And I wasn't rational before. See, the truth is, the spiritual powers doesn't make you like away with the fairies. Well, it didn't do that for me. It made me become very rational, almost like psychiatrist type rational. Looking at everything from a rational perspective. And regarding the nothingness, it was like all of a sudden I was thinking a lot in the early part of the awakening about there's nothing, everything, nothing. And that's how I created a meditation, nothingness meditation, which I've shared sometimes on the internet. But like I said earlier, the problem with nothing is it's a perception of nothing. No one can really know what nothingness is because they wouldn't exist to experience it. You can't define nothing because definition of something is an idea. It's a concept. Everything is like that. It's all stories, made up stories, concepts, ideologies, beliefs. And then what happens is we repeat it and believe it. And then, like I always say, that when you've got that, you've got insanity. You see, and so yeah, it's kind of like it's complete delusion. Most people live in because they believe in these narratives. It all starts from someone else, and then other people repeat it. You're just repeating someone else's perceptions or perspectives or ideas. And it's okay to, well, it's not okay, but you can repeat it, but if you start back really believing it, that's when you've got a real issue. So I'm not here to tell you what nothingness is, because I don't know myself. I know less now than I did more than 11 years ago, or 11 years ago at the Awakening, first big one. The Awakening showed me that I don't know anything. Because to know something is all based on your concepts. It's just mental constructs. The form that forms itself as, like I say, ideologies, stories, beliefs. Basically, you're just making stuff up. And what they do is they label it. This is done, all over the place. Make something up, get others to repeat it. And and words, people can say what they want, but words, do something eventually. Some people downplay it, but when you're repeating things and then believing in it, that does take its toll eventually. So, but this nothingness thing, that's what was happening at the start of the Awakening. I started to become aware of that all was a reflection of me, and it's all nothingness. And then I started to think, well, if it's nothing, but then I realised, but your perspective of nothing is your perspective of nothing. But nothingness is that which cannot be defined. You see? It's before any perspective. But because it's nothingness, or it's the one infinity. So that's really what oneness means, like Deepak Chopra says, that oneness is the one nothing. But like I just said, that defining nothingness, that's where the problem comes in. That's where the problem comes in. And then you realise that there's no way an individual can actually know anything. There is no such thing as knowing anything. Because it's just fantasy. It's all a facade, it's all fantasy, it's all, stories in the head. You see? There can never be any real form or any real anything. Because if nothingness, you can't define it, and that creates reality, or there's something in that creates reality. If you can't define nothingness, then you can't define everything. But everything, like I've said, is just labels and made up. Like if you look around yourself right now, everything, wherever you are, was made up by someone else and repeated. Or was it? Because if it's one, it's got to be one infinite nothing. So it can only be that you're experiencing yourself, and that the nothingness is you. You see? And nothingness would have to be before any apparent God. And because it's nothing, like I say, it's only an appearance of something, or whatever you think it is. And this is all starting at the start of my awakening. And even that in itself is another story. You see? And what has happened on this reality is people have repeated these stories and beliefs and everything so much that they argue over other people's made up perspectives and beliefs. And that's why what we've got on the planet is insanity. Mass insanity. Because like I say, once you've reached insanity, once you repeat and believe all this stuff. You'd start to return to sanity, I believe, when you start to spiritually awaken and you realise that it's all a joke. So I'm going to disappoint some people because the talk says what is nothing, but I can't tell you, I don't know. I probably would have knew more, likely, sarcastically, I'm saying before my awakening. And that's the way it is, nothing can be defined. It's made up by someone else, and, well, like I say, it's not really someone else. You're repeating what the one infinite nothing, the dream, or whatever it is. But even when you get away from the dream, you're entering into another dream. It's a bit like the ego, or the inner narcissist. I call it the inner narcissist, and that's the thing that is thinking it knows something. And you can't know anything because it's all narratives. Narratives, belief patterns, nonsense, basically. And so, and it's weird, it's crazy in this age because everyone's arguing over this or that, but what are you arguing for? It's all made up anyway. You see? You're just repeating, what apparent, and like I say, the apparent creates the narratives, and the narratives create the apparent. You see? But whatever was in our minds before is what decides what the apparent is. Because how you see whatever you think you're seeing is to do with what's within you. And even that is a perception. And the deeper you go with that, you realise, you can't think of it anymore. It's insanity. But within this nothing, see, that's what people talk about Kundalini, tantric awareness, presence, nothingness. They are the same. And when someone is ascending, when they think they're tapping into tantric awareness, orgasmic awareness, you've got videos of women having energy orgasms. That is the force within the nothing, and there is the nothing. You see? So the more you return to this I don't know nothing that I can't define, that's when you tap into the source of all life, the one infinite creator. It's an energy field that is peaceful, calming, but within it is like peaking orgasmic energies. But again, as I say that's a narrative. I may believe that is true, and it may be really my experience. But really, it's just a bunch of stories that I'm saying. I may think they're accurate, and someone else might repeat it's accurate. But if it's all a dream, that's all it can be. If you come from nothing, then what is accurate? It would be a total facade. Like a mad dream that you wake up from and it's like, it was so real. And that's I just thought I would do a talk on this. I've spoken about this before, but yeah, the nothingness thing was one of the first things in my spiritual awakening, apparently. And that then became a narrative, and then this narrative and the apparent are feeding off each other. So then you realise, like I've been saying on this talk, I don't know anything. And that's when you just let go to whatever the nothingness divinity is. And that's the way to ascension. Apparently. But I'm just going to leave it there. For latest updates, talks, news, research, and much, much more, please do check my website at www.lovelightfamily.com. And also, if you want to donate to me, if you'd like, my Cash App cash tag is # Lovelight Family 1111. Thank you.